Developing listening skills. Listening, a talk about preventing heart disease. A, page 7.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for coming. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Tara Sorensen, and I'm a public health nurse. Public health nurses are like other nurses, but we take care of more than one person. Our job is to keep everyone in the community healthy. I know, it's a big job. Mostly I do this through education. Tonight, I have 45 minutes to teach you about heart disease. There are different kinds of heart disease, but tonight we're talking about coronary heart disease, the kind of heart disease that can cause a heart attack. Heart attacks happen when arteries or other blood vessels become too narrow. If they're too narrow, blood vessels can't bring enough blood and oxygen to the heart, and this causes a heart attack. The good news is there are many things you can do to prevent heart disease. The first step is pretty easy. Get your blood pressure checked. High blood pressure is bad for your blood vessels, and it can lead to heart disease. So if you do have high blood pressure, you need to do something about it. For example, if you're overweight, losing 5 or 10 pounds could help lower your blood pressure. And you probably already know this. You can lose weight by eating a healthy diet and getting enough exercise. Let's talk about diet first. Now, I'm not talking about a special diet where you eat only apples and lemons for a week. Nothing like that. I'm talking about healthy eating habits, how you eat most of the time. According to government reports, these habits can keep your weight and your blood pressure down, and they can help to prevent heart disease. First, eat several servings of vegetables and fruits every day. Second, eat less salt and less sugar. Third, choose low-fat dairy products such as low-fat milk, yogurt, and cheese. Fourth, eat healthy protein foods such as fish, and eat only small amounts of red meat. And fifth, choose whole grains when you eat foods such as bread and rice. These are things you can do every day, or at least most of the time. I know, nobody is perfect, right? In addition, these healthy eating habits can help control your blood sugar. High blood sugar is another cause of heart disease. Now, let's talk about exercise. I suggest exercising at least 4 days every week for at least 30 minutes, and not just easy exercise. You should be breathing hard, and your heart rate should be beating faster than usual. Not too fast, of course, but faster than usual. This will make your heart stronger and make you healthier. Besides high blood pressure and high blood sugar, another common cause of heart disease is smoking. I guess everyone knows it's a very unhealthy habit, and if you want to prevent heart disease, you have to quit smoking. It's also important to get enough sleep and to find healthy ways to deal with stress. After all, we have jobs and children and other things that make us feel stressed out. So go for a walk or take a yoga class. Then make a healthy dinner for your family. If you do these things, you will be much less likely to have coronary heart disease in the future. Of course, some people do need medication to control their blood pressure or blood sugar, so it's important to visit your doctor regularly. All right. Are there any questions? Yes, the man in the back.
Developing listening skills. Listening, an informal conversation. A, listening for main ideas. Page 16.
I had no idea that allergies were so serious and so common.
Yeah, they are. I'm allergic to strawberries, peanuts, and chocolate. And I love chocolate.
Wow. Allergic to chocolate? That must be really hard.
It is. Are you allergic to anything?
No, at least not that I know of. I don't really know much about allergies, fortunately.
Yeah, you're lucky. My allergies are really bad sometimes, especially in spring and early summer. And I also have asthma.
Oh, you have asthma too? It can't be easy for you living in the city with all this air pollution then, can it?
Well, the air pollution is bad, but I find it much harder to be around smoke. It's really hard for me to breathe. I also can't be around cats for too long, and some kinds of flowers also cause my asthma to act up. Fortunately, my asthma medication works really quickly, and I feel better almost immediately.
Well, that's good. What about food allergies? Those can be really bad too, can't they?
You bet. Like I said, I'm allergic to chocolate, strawberries, and peanuts.
I'd hate to be allergic to chocolate. I can't live without chocolate.
Well, believe me, it's not easy. But being allergic to peanuts is actually harder because you don't always know when food contains peanuts or peanut oil.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yesterday in class, Professor Martinez was telling us that there is a no peanuts policy here on campus because allergies can be really dangerous.
Yeah, that's right. The cafeteria and snack bar stopped serving foods that contain peanuts and peanut oil last year after a student had an allergic reaction and was rushed to the hospital.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Professor Martinez called food allergies the new allergy problem.
Yeah, that's right. And she also said that there were twice as many children with food allergies in 2002 than in 1997. I think it's called the new allergy problem because it's growing very quickly. I read that nowadays about 6% of children have food allergies.
6%? Wow, that's a lot of kids.
It sure is.
A. Listening for main ideas. Page 27. Well, it's just about 7 o'clock, so why don't we get started? So, hello, and good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. I'm Carl Jones, and tonight I'm going to talk to you about energy use around the world. Instead of talking in general terms, I decided to focus on 3 families from 3 different countries and discuss how each family uses energy in their daily lives. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, good. First, let's look at the Chuma family in a village in Botswana. Mr. Chuma is a tour guide, and the family also raises cows. In this slide, you can see Mrs. Chuma doing some of her housework outside the family's small house. She washes her clothes by hand, and then she hangs them in the sun to dry. She isn't using any fossil fuels to wash and dry, which means she isn't sending any greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. In the next slide, you can see 3 of the Chuma's children and their neighbors' children going to school. The children walk there, and in the rainy season, they have to use this boat to cross the river. Again, you can see they aren't using much energy, so they aren't producing much carbon. Overall, the Chuma's demand for fossil fuels is quite low. They use fossil fuels for a few important things, such as electric lights and a radio, so as a family, they have a fairly small impact on the environment. But global warming is having a significant impact on the people of Botswana, and the Chuma family is one example of this. Sometimes they don't have water, and there isn't enough grass for their farm animals because of the dry climate. Now, let's look at the next family, the Nelsons. The Nelsons live in Las Vegas, in the United States. Here, in this slide, you can see Brandy Nelson with her laundry. She's listening to the news on a big TV while she folds laundry in their living room. She washed and dried these clothes in a machine, and there are many other things in their house that use electricity. In the next slide, you can see the Nelson children coming home from school. They attend a private school. The Nelsons drive them to school because there isn't a bus. Brandy and her husband are entertainers, and they both drive to their jobs because it's faster than public transportation. Their jobs are far from their home, so they use about a gallon of gasoline every day. The Nelsons want to conserve energy and have done several things to help reduce the amount of energy they use. For example, this year they bought more efficient appliances. They also want to put in a solar energy system in their house, but it's very expensive. Their lifestyle puts a lot of carbon into the atmosphere, but they say it's difficult to change their habits. Finally, we have the Panchal family. This is Neetu Panchal, who lives in Jaipur, India. There are 11 people in her family, all living in one house. They have a washing machine, but she hangs her clothes on the top of her house to dry. The Panchals are saving money to build another room in their house for Neetu's cousin and his wife. Neetu's sister, Lalita, goes to work by bus. Here she is in this next slide here. Lalita works in a hotel far from their home. It takes her 40 minutes to get there. She hopes that the family will soon buy a car so she can spend less time getting to work and more time at home with her family. India has a very big middle class, more than 300 million people. Changes in the lifestyles of India's middle class will have a big impact on the world's greenhouse gases. For instance, by 2050, there will be about 600 million cars in India, more than any other country in the world. And as the demand for cars increases, so will the demand for oil and gas.
Listening, an informal conversation. A. Listening for main ideas, page 37.
What's the matter, Dad? You look kind of upset.
Well, I am kind of upset. Our energy bill is very high this month.
Really? How much is it?
It's $400, which is a lot higher than usual.
Wow, that sounds like a lot.
Well, it is a lot. I'd really like to find ways to cut back on how much energy we use.
B. Listening for details, page 37.
Well, we can help think of some ideas. Like last week in school, we learned about energy efficient light bulbs. Maybe we should get some of those.
Well, that's a start. Thanks, Jason. I'm sure our local hardware store sells them, or maybe even the grocery store.
I have an idea. Jason should take shorter showers. He takes really long showers, and that probably wastes a lot of energy.
I do not. You take longer showers than I do. Maybe you should stop using your hair dryer every morning. That probably uses a lot of electricity, and it's noisy.
I don't use it every morning.
Kids, you don't have to start taking short showers or stop using the hairdryer, but we do need to try to reduce the amount of energy we use. I think we should keep track of how we're using energy every month. Write it down. Then we can set a target. For example, maybe we try to decrease the amount of energy we use by 10% next month.
How are we going to do that?
Well, we can all try to think of ways to cut back. What do you guys think we can do?
I know. We can put in solar heating panels.
Well, that might save energy, but solar panels are expensive. That's an interesting idea, Jason, but let's try to think of little things we can do every day, changes we can start making immediately.
Well, okay. For one thing, we have 3 computers here at home, so we should try to remember to turn them off at night. That could help.
Good idea, Diana. Okay, let's try to think of some more ideas. You kids have some good ones.
Oh, maybe we can try to use some of our appliances, like the stove and oven, less often.
What, you want us to eat cold food every day?
No, I didn't say that. But maybe we should eat sandwiches or salads for dinner sometimes, instead of cooking every night. Cooking probably uses a lot of energy.
Okay, kids. That's a good idea, Diana, but I don't think we have to stop eating cooked food for dinner. We just need to think more carefully about how we're using energy and make some changes. And they can be small, gradual changes. Let's see. For example, this month we can replace our light bulbs with more energy efficient ones and remember to turn off our computers at night. Those were 2 great ideas you kids had. Then next month we'll look at the bill and see how much we've saved. Then we can decide what to do next. Sound like a plan?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Listening. A lecture. A. Listening for main ideas. Page 47.
Okay, so let's continue. A lot of people today think that the last cowboys disappeared a long time ago. It's true that there are fewer cowboys today, and the cowboy way of life is endangered. Money is a big factor here. Cowboys usually don't make a lot of money for all the hard work they do. So fewer young people today want to be cowboys. It's not an easy lifestyle. Even so, in some parts of the world, cowboys still ride their horses, watch the cattle, and practice traditional cowboy customs. A few years ago, a photographer named Rob Kendrick traveled around different regions of North America, talking to modern cowboys and taking photographs with a very old kind of camera. He recorded their way of life in a book called Still: Cowboys at the Start of the 21st Century. Here are 2 of the cowboys that Rob Kendrick included in his book. This is Tyrell Tucker. He was 18 years old when Kendrick took this photograph. Tyrell was working on a ranch at that time. He was born in Wyoming in the United States, and he was riding horses before he could walk. He got his first horse when he was 2 years old. He worked as a cowboy during his school vacations. Then his mother needed help with the family ranch. So he left school at the age of 17. He was happy to do that. Tyrell was working outside while all his classmates were indoors playing computer games. His most difficult job was one winter when he and his older brother worked alone on a ranch in Arizona. He estimates they took care of 2,300 cattle there, so it was a big job. Every day from December to April, they rode their horses on over 150 square miles of land, an area the size of a major city. Can you imagine that? And there were no other people there. Tyrell and his brother lived in a shack with no electricity and ate the same food every day: pancakes, sausages, potatoes, and hamburgers. And Tyrell enjoyed the work and developed a love for being outdoors. Now, let's take a look at the cowboys of Mexico. The cowboy tradition started in Mexico in the 1600s, when Spanish people brought the first cattle to the New World. Big ranches needed workers to take care of their herds of cattle. These men were called vaqueros, from the Spanish word vaca, which means cow. The vaqueros started wearing big hats to keep the sun off their faces and high boots to protect their legs. Later, some Mexican vaqueros moved north into Texas, and their clothes became a part of the cowboy culture there. Wearing cowboy hats and boots is part of the culture that is still preserved today in Texas and other parts of North America. Today, Mexico has two kinds of cowboys. One kind, called charros, ride horses and compete in sports. The other are the vaqueros that I just described, and who work with cattle on the ranches, especially in the north of the country. The vaqueros still ride horses and live outdoors for many months at a time. This is a picture of Manuel Rodriguez, a young vaquero in Coahuila, Mexico. Manuel started helping his father at La Mora Ranch when he was only 4 years old. He was the fourth generation of his family to work at La Mora Ranch. Manuel recently got married and moved to the city, but he plans to move back to the countryside and work as a vaquero again after his first child is born. Okay, so from this, we can see that the cowboy's way of life hasn't changed. That's because the work hasn't changed. Cowboys still ride horses because they can get close to the cattle. Herds of cattle still need a lot of grass, so cowboys must keep moving them from one place to another. That's the job of the cowboy. It's the same today as it was in the past.
Developing listening skills. Listening. An assignment and a student presentation. A. Note-taking. Page 57.
Okay. Yesterday, we listened to music from Latin America. We heard some traditional music, and we also heard new music that developed from this traditional music. Now, I'm going to ask you to do some research and give a short presentation to the class. In this presentation, you're going to do 6 things, so please take notes. First, I want you to select a kind of music from another culture to present. Then, I want you to talk about the culture it comes from. Got that? Next, you should describe the music and explain which aspects of this music are traditional and which aspects are new or modern. Then, I want you to compare and contrast it with another kind of music we have talked about in class this semester. I'd also like you to play a sample of the music if you can. And finally, you should briefly summarize the main ideas of your presentation and answer any questions from your classmates. Okay? Everyone got that? You'll give your presentations in class next Thursday and Friday. Now, if everyone is clear about that, I'd like to...
Excuse me, I have a question. How long should our presentations be?
Right, that's important. I want you to talk for at least 2 minutes.
I have another question. What do you mean by aspects? You said we should explain what aspects of the music are traditional.
I mean things like the instruments, the rhythm, the melody, or the lyrics. Okay, see you next Thursday.
B. Listening for main ideas. Page 57.
Good morning. I'm Alex, as you know. I'm going to talk to you today about music from the Roma culture. The music I selected is by a group called Shukar Collective. They're from Romania. First, I just wanted to define the word Shukar, which means fine, or really good in Romani. I think they're really good, so I think it's a good name for them. Shukar Collective is a group of musicians and DJs from Eastern Europe, and they play music from the Roma culture. About their culture, traditionally, the Roma didn't have a home, so they often moved from place to place. Now they mostly stay in one place, and many of them speak 2 languages, their own Roma language and the language of the country where they live. One thing the Roma people are very famous for is music. Traditional Roma music usually has a very fast rhythm, and the lyrics show very strong feelings. The traditional Roma instruments are drums and an instrument called the cymbalum that sounds sort of like a piano. They also use some new electronic instruments, so their music is a mixture of traditional and modern sounds. I really like their music, as you can probably tell. Shukar Collective is made up of 3 traditional singers and 4 electronic musicians. They call their music electro gypsy dance, and it's very popular in dance clubs all over Europe. I actually did not bring a sample to play today, but I can bring one in tomorrow, or you can probably go online and find some of their music. Okay, to summarize, Shukar Collective is a group from Eastern Europe. They play music from the Roma culture, which combines traditional and new electronic sounds. It is very popular in Europe. Well, that's it. Thanks for listening to my presentation. So, does anyone have any questions?
Lesson A. Developing listening skills. Listening. A guest speaker. A. Listening for main ideas. Page 66.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to be here today. I'm Dr. Paul Benjamin. I'm an engineer, and I'm here to talk to you about the Three Gorges Dam in China. As you probably already know, China's Three Gorges Dam is one of the world's largest dams. It's 1.4 miles long and 607 feet tall. That's 5 times larger than the Hoover Dam in the United States. The dam's reservoir is 410 miles long. It's huge. So as you can imagine, an engineering project of this size requires a lot of workers, and a lot of workers were involved in the building of the Three Gorges Dam. At one time, more than 26,000 Chinese workers and foreigners were working together to build the dam. Okay, so why was the Three Gorges Dam built? Why was it constructed? Well, it was constructed in order to provide a renewable source of energy for China's increasing demand for electricity. That's one reason. It was also built to help control the water in the Yangtze River. The water from this river is a valuable resource, but if it's not managed well, it can be very dangerous. Chinese authorities estimate that in the 20th century, about 300,000 people were killed in the Yangtze River floods. Protecting people's lives is a priority, and the dam was designed to protect people by controlling the river and preventing future floods. Okay, now another reason the dam was built was to help China's economy. Because the dam makes the water in the Yangtze River deeper, larger ships can travel farther up the river. This means more trade, so more money, a better economy. So we can see that building an enormous dam like this can provide important benefits. But at the same time, there are risks, potential problems. For example, the Three Gorges Dam will put a lot of land underwater. Many towns and villages will probably disappear. Over 1 million people have already lost their land and have had to leave the region to find new homes. The dam will also put many very old historical and cultural sites underwater, which is very unfortunate because China has such an interesting history. In addition, a huge engineering project like the Three Gorges Dam can have a significant impact on the environment. For example, factories flooded by the dam's reservoir are polluting the river, making the water very dirty and unsafe. Also, the dam can cause an increase in erosion or the gradual destruction of soil and rock near the river. Earthquakes are another concern in this area. An earthquake that occurs near a dam that controls so much water could be extremely dangerous. Okay, so in conclusion, the Three Gorges Dam is one of the world's largest dams. It was built in order to provide some important benefits to the people of China. But as we can also see, there are some significant risks to building a dam this large. The main thing is to understand that there are both benefits and risks to this kind of enormous engineering project. Well, it looks like we are just about out of time. So again, thank you all very much for coming today. Now, are there any questions?
Lesson B. Developing listening skills. Listening. A group discussion. A. Listening for main ideas. Page 76.
For our presentation on how people are affected by drought, here's some information about drought in a region called the Murray-Darling Basin. That's the biggest agricultural area in Australia. The city of Adelaide is there. In some places in the region, it hasn't rained once in 7 years. Can you imagine?
Wow, that's unbelievable.
I know. The article has some really good photos. Maybe we can show them to the class. Look, here's one of a farm family. Their name is Adlington.
They sure don't look happy. What does their farm produce?
Milk. They used to have 500 cattle, and now they only have 70 because grass is so scarce.
Really? Wait a minute. In class, Professor Larson said that river is used for irrigation in Australia. What's it called? The Murray River?
Yeah, that's right. But the normal water level of the river is now extremely low. The government allocated most of the water to the city of Adelaide for domestic use and to big industrial farms. The law says that some water has to stay in the river for the fish and animals, so there's not much left for agriculture.
Well, in my opinion, water is the most important resource a place has. And cities are the top priority. I mean, that's where most people live.
And here's a picture of a lake in another part of Australia that's almost disappeared, called Lake Boga. Look at this. Now all the water in Lake Boga is used by farmers.
That's unbelievable. It's totally gone.
The article said Lake Boga used to be a vacation place. Now it's in crisis. No one stays in the hotels, and the whole town smells like dead fish.
Ugh, that's really sad. But I think growing food is the most important consideration.
Look, this photo shows an urgent meeting for rice farmers, talking about how the government reduced their water allocation. The guy in the middle, Frank Whalen, started one of the first rice farms in Australia in 1962. The article says Australia used to grow 1 million tons of rice a year, but now they only grow 21,000 tons.
You're kidding. And the world needs a lot more food.
But doesn't rice need a lot of water to grow? Maybe Australia isn't the best place for rice farms.
That just doesn't sound fair. It seems like the farmers have to give their water to industry and everyone else.
Not exactly. There are a lot of water rules and restrictions in Australian cities too. For example, the article says that water is collected in showers and used to water gardens.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Developing listening skills. Listening. A documentary. A. Page 86. Your amazing brain. You carry around a 3-pound organ in your head that controls everything you will ever do. It enables you to think, learn, create, and feel emotions, and controls every breath and heartbeat. This fantastic control center is your brain. It is so amazing that a famous scientist once called it the most complex thing we have yet discovered in our universe. Your brain works faster than a supercomputer. Imagine your cat is on your kitchen counter. She's about to step onto a hot stove. You have only seconds to respond. By using the signals coming from your eyes, your brain quickly calculates when, where, and how quickly you will need to move to stop your cat from stepping on the stove. Your brain then tells your muscles what to do. You run across the kitchen and pick your cat up, and she's safe. No computer can come close to your brain's ability to receive, process, and respond to the enormous amount of information coming from your eyes, ears, and other sensory organs. The brain is also an amazingly powerful organ. It generates enough electricity to power a light bulb. Your brain contains about 100 billion microscopic cells called neurons. So many, it would take you over 3,000 years to count them all. Whenever you dream, laugh, think, see, or move, it's because tiny chemical and electrical signals are moving at high speed between these neurons along billions of tiny neuron highways. The activity in your brain never stops. Thousands and thousands of messages are sent around inside your brain every second. Your neurons create and send more messages than all the phones in the entire world. And while a single neuron generates only a tiny amount of electricity, all your neurons together can generate enough electricity to power a light bulb. Your neurons are not only able to send lots of messages, they are able to send them very quickly. Neurons send information to your brain at more than 150 miles per hour. For example, imagine that a bee lands on your bare foot. Sensory neurons in your skin send this information to your spinal cord and brain at a speed of more than 150 miles per hour. Your brain then uses motor neurons to transmit or send the message back through your spinal cord, telling your foot to shake the bee off quickly. Motor neurons can transmit this information at more than 200 miles per hour. What about learning? We know that learning increases knowledge, but studies show that when you learn, you actually change the structure of your brain. For example, an activity like riding a bike seems impossible at first, but soon you master it. But how do you do this? As you practice, your brain sends bike riding messages along certain pathways of neurons over and over, forming new connections. In fact, the structure of your brain changes every time you learn, as well as whenever you have a new thought or memory. Exercise also has an impact on your brain. Research shows that exercise actually helps make you smarter. It is well known that any exercise that makes your heart beat faster, such as jogging or playing soccer, is good for your body and can even help improve your mood. But scientists have recently learned that for a period of time after you've exercised, your body produces a chemical that makes it easier for your brain to learn. So the next time you're stuck trying to solve a homework problem, go out for a bike ride or go jogging. Then try the problem again. You just might discover that you're able to solve it. Listening. A conversation between students. A. Listening for main ideas. Page 97.
Did you understand everything Professor Wong said yesterday about short-term memory?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not sure that I did.
Well, here's what I got from the lecture. Your short-term memory only lasts a few seconds, right? Information enters the brain through the senses, things we taste, touch, smell, and so on, and we remember it long enough to function normally.
Sorry, but what do you mean by function normally?
Well, for example, if I ask you a question, you can remember the question long enough to answer it.
Right, but you might not remember the question tomorrow.
Okay, that makes sense. But how is the process similar or different for long-term memory?
Actually, the process is quite different. First of all, to create a long-term memory, your brain has to decide that something is important.
Like information from yesterday's lecture?
Right. Or how to ride a bicycle.
Sure, like both of those things. But there's more to the process. To learn new information, you have to concentrate. You know, really focus on it and think about it. Or study it. Or to learn how to do something, like ride a bicycle, you have to do it again and again.
Yeah. So, in other words, if I want to memorize information for, say, an exam and have it go into my long-term memory, I need to really concentrate on the information when I hear it or read it, and maybe review it several times. That's just common sense, I think.
It is common sense, but it's interesting to me that when you learn new things, your brain forms new connections, new pathways of neurons.
That is interesting. So learning actually changes the structure of the brain.